This episode is sponsored by the Bridge to Recovery, a nonprofit program on 115 acres near Bowling Green, Kentucky, a tranquil place where they've been changing lives for over 40 years. Their people improve their quality of life by acknowledging past emotional wounds and healing from all forms of trauma. The CEO, Paul Hamlin, has been a friend of mine for 20 years. Call him directly at 858-945-7848. That's 858-945-7848, or you can learn more about the Bridge to Recovery by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting thebridgetororecovery.com. Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I'm Jasmine Estevez, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
Thanks for listening. I'm Tom Gentry. I guess about 2 years ago, I started to practice yoga a little bit, and it's made quite a difference in my life since I began. And so once I started to do this podcast, I've always had in mind that I wanted to have a yogi on the show. So I've been looking to do that for a while, and Jasmine Estevez seems to not only fit that description as a yogi and a yoga instructor, but she also kind of fits the mold of a lot of the recent guests I've had who just kind of walked away from good corporate position to go live a life more aligned with what she really wants to do day to day. So we had a great conversation. She's pretty awesome. So I hope you enjoy it. It's Jasmine Estevez.
Product of some bad seeds, just some guys that ruined the weeds. But we learn how.
So Jasmine, thanks for coming on here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me tonight.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me and reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. So I told you I've wanted to have a yogi on here for a long time, and for whatever reason, I just haven't been able to make it happen yet. But here you are, finally, my first yogi on the podcast here. And I if you remember, I kind of vetted you a little bit, messaging you on Instagram, right? Do you remember what I asked you?
Yeah, you asked me. Well, I think you asked, what is yoga? What does yoga mean to you?
Yeah, what is yoga to you?
To me,
yes.
It's more than just the asana, which most people are familiar with, the poses. It's everything. It's mental. It's a lifestyle. It changes you. It's something that once you get in it and you start from my first class, my personal experience, like as soon as I took my first class, it was just something that it made me feel good, and it continues to make me feel good. It has changed my life, and as cliche as that sounds, it's made me a better person and more conscious of the decisions that I make in my life as a teacher, as a mother, as a friend. It's the most life-changing practice that I've done, and I've been somewhat consistent with for the last almost 8 years.
So it's been 8 years.
8 years, yeah. coming on 8 years.
And you practice every day, right? Pretty much.
I do have a solid practice right now. I did take almost a year off at one point, and life got in the way, and I wasn't really focusing on that part of yoga. So I took a break, and that's part of the journey, I believe. And now my practice is pretty solid. I practice every day, even if it's 10 minutes, just rolling out my mat and sitting in child's pose.
So what do you think it is about yoga that is so transformative? If you had to why do you think it is that it's been so meaningful to you and that it's so meaningful to so many people? What is it about it?
It's the journey of self. You really start to figure yourself out through the practice, through the physical practice. You start to notice like changes slowly, and it's hard. Like life is hard, and yoga can be hard. It's hard for me even now, 8 years later. But you start to transform, and you start to see things coming just a little bit easier. And you may like start feeling comfortable in your downward dog. Your alignment feels better. Something the teacher may say in a class resonates with you, and it's just this journey that you're going through that is just personal. It's not about anyone else. It's such a personal practice. And I think that's why people are drawn to it, because it's not just about, like I'm going to look great and I'm going to be toned. There's breakthroughs in there in your practice. And I feel like that's why people are drawn to it, because you just get subtle little breakthroughs here and there. And you're like, wow, this makes more sense, and you take this off of your mat. Mm-hmm. And that's where people connect with it, because it's not just in the studio or at home. You take it out with, and expose other people with it, with what you learn by little things. And I think that's why everyone that practices yoga and that has a strong practice, regardless of what that may look like, that's why it resonates so much with us.
Well, for me, one of the things I noticed about it from the very beginning is, first of all, it's hard. Yeah. It's difficult. So going to that first class, it's like it kind of does a number on you, and it's especially the balancing and stuff. It's really hard. But one of the things I noticed right away is that I was using different muscles than I probably had ever really used before, or at least using them in a different way. And after I started to practice a little bit, 3-4 classes, you get a little bit better. Just incrementally better each time you practice. And then suddenly I realized, like, I feel grounded and strong in a way that I've never felt strong like this before. It's just different. There's something different about it. And to me, it's like, it's kind of like feeling rooted to the ground.
Absolutely.
I really, it's enabled me to like have a physical expression where I feel like, I'm really in my body. Because if we're really tuned into our bodies, when do we really feel like we're in our bodies? And when a person's going through some sort of distress or something like that, like in therapeutic venues, it's a lot of times it's really important to kind of help them get grounded and feel their body, and then their psyche kind of can adjust. I digress a little bit here, but it just, there's something really natural and peaceful about just really feeling in your body.
Yeah. Being aware. And that's what yoga does. It makes you body awareness of, and so many people lack that. They don't know what's going on with their bodies. We're just so busy with the day to day and going that we don't really know how to feel, and we don't know how to sit in our bodies. And like the whole grounding thing, just sitting there, really feeling the points of contact of the body to the ground. Like that's important for us, like to get that energy. and to find that stillness in this life that we're always going, going, going. And yoga does that. It really slows us down and makes us mindful of what we're doing.
And, you go through a class, a practice, and you kind of focus on every part of your body at some point. It's like to me, it's like, my understanding of it myself is kind of that it's like an expression of self-love, because you're giving attention to every part of your body at one point or another during a practice. You just are. And it's just very self-soothing. There's something about it, like, to me, that this is something I'm being really good to myself right now because I'm doing this. Just the nature of it, the stretches, and even like the binds, because you're constricting blood flow. And then when you release the bind, the blood rushes back. It's just, there are just so many things about it. And one thing that came up for me as I've learned, started practice yoga and talked to other people who do it. There's a friend of mine who I kind of used him as a little bit of a accountability partner, because I was really kind of leery to walk into a yoga studio like this place where I practice. I drove by there for a couple years thinking, man, someday I'm going to go in there. And then I never would. And I think it's because I was self-conscious, and here I am, this, I hate to say it, but I'm a middle-aged guy, and I'm going to walk into this place where it's predominantly female, and, am I going to look right? And are they going to think I'm some creepy old dude? Or, I had all this stuff going on. And so I became friends with this guy, and who's practiced for a really long time. And I could go to him and say, like, what do I wear? What do I... And ultimately it was, okay, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it by a certain time, and I'm going to call you after I do. He kind of held me accountable, and which was really helpful. And then, of course, I got there, and before long realized it was this community with all this warmth, and who really welcomed me in, and you just feel the love when you walk into the place. There's something really sweet about it. But anyway, this guy, one of the things he said to me about his experience with yoga was that probably the most unexpected part of it for him was that it taught him how to breathe. He actually said to me, it taught me how to breathe. I never knew I needed to learn how to breathe. But talk about that. Talk about your experience with that and what that even means.
With the breathing and connecting with your breath? Yeah. Yes. So I practiced yoga for about 5 years, and I did not know what I was doing with my breath. I went there, and, teachers would cue, like, you need to breathe here, inhale, exhale, every movement requires an in or out breath. And so it didn't connect with me until about 5 years into my practice. And it teaches you how to breathe, how to inhale and fill up your body and, like, get fresh blood to every cell in your body. And exhaling, just releasing the bad energy. And it wasn't, like I said, 5 years into my practice, and it just clicked. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a teacher. I don't remember, but I remember breathing. And it was the first time where I was like, this is yoga. I get it now. This is why I've been practicing this long. I feel great. It made everything feel a little less, like I wasn't putting so much effort into each pose because I was breathing into each pose. And that, for most people, we don't breathe. Like, we don't breathe enough, like, meaningful inhales and exhales. And it has such a calming effect to the body and the mind. And that's why as a teacher, I practice, and in most studios will, we start with our breathing. You start and we connect with our breath. And you have to just remind yourself, even if you're not on your mat, like just breathe.
Yeah.
Like a deep inhale in, like feel what it feels like. Like, what does it feel like? Is it warm? Is it, short, shallow? And then exhale and like slowly breathe it out. And it feels so good. If you do that, even sitting at a desk a couple times a day, you'd feel so much different.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that kind of opened my eyes to is the moments when I tend to hold my breath.
Yes. And when you hold your breath, what happens?
You just tighten up and
yeah, you're tense. And so people don't breathe through situations, especially if we're angry or if we're upset. We hold our breath in. We're really tense. And so once you start to breathe and you pay attention to that, you loosen up. Your shoulders soften. You relax your neck a little. Your jaw softens. You sit into your body a little more. You feel a little more grounded. Or the tears come out. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we go through life. We don't even think about this stuff.
No.
So that's what it means. It taught me how to breathe. That's what it means.
Yeah.
And it taught me how to breathe too. And if I go a while without practicing, when I go back, like that's pretty much the hardest part for me, is to get back into the routine of breath and having the awareness of it through the entire practice.
Yes.
The breath. But when I say that's the hardest part of it, I mean, it's also all of it, because every pose, for me, my observation is every pose, if my breath is right, it's just so much easier.
Yeah, it's like effortless in a sense. I mean, again, you're working out. It's not going to be easy, but it feels so much different when you follow your breath, as opposed if you're like holding it in and not breathing. And then you're like, and you notice you're like, wow, that was a really tough practice.
Yeah.
Because you weren't breathing. You weren't being mindful. You weren't being mindful of your breath throughout your practice. You were in your head.
Yeah. I mean, I've caught myself many, many times thinking, man, why is this so hard right now? I've done this so many times. And it hits me. It's because you're holding your breath, you idiot. Quit holding your breath.
And once you practice that, you practice your breath, like it, it nourishes you and it transforms your practice completely. And that's why I tell people, like, oh, I really started practicing yoga like 3 years ago. That's when I really got like the most benefit out of my practice, is just breathing.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Yeah. It's it just makes such a difference. And the other part of it with the breathing that I think is significant, there's a mindfulness aspect to that with the breathing. And you think about it, like if I'm focusing on my breath, I'm not focusing on my muscles or the strain of this muscle or that muscle. I'm focused on my breath. So I'm not thinking about how I'm experiencing pain right now as a result of exerting,
or how long you're in that posture.
Right.
Yeah, or how long you're in that posture. Like, okay, let's go now. But if you're like, okay, inhale, really inhale, feel that. Yeah. And then exhale to the next one.
You're feeling your lungs. You're feeling the breath against the back of your throat or your nostrils or whatever, and it just diverts your attention from whatever it is that is getting in the way or could get in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point did you decide to become an instructor?
Right when I learned how to breathe. Yeah, so it kind of went hand in hand. 5 years into my practice, I moved to Florida, actually. And the idea of it kind of ran through my mind a few times before my 5 years of practice. I always knew that if I were to make that decision and invest so much into a teacher training, that I wanted a pretty strong practice myself. And within 5 years, I never felt like my practice was strong until I learned my breath. and people would be like, oh, you're advancing. And I never felt like that because it was still hard, you know?
Mm.
So once I learned how to breathe, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, this feels good. Like, now everyone needs to learn how to breathe because this is yoga.
Right.
And I wanted people to learn that. And once I moved here to Florida, finding a teacher training that works with my schedule was like the hardest thing. And I found a studio here, and it just happened. I overheard the owner talking about it, and I was like, oh, you can do it over the summer, and you know, we can do it on these days and that. I can totally do that. Like, it worked for my schedule. I can do it within 3 months, about 3 months, 3 or 4 months, I think. And yeah, it worked out perfectly for what I needed. And that year was a really tough year for me. So going into the teacher training was something that I feel like, again, was something I needed for that time in my life. I needed to get out of my head and spend more time with people that were experiencing the same things as me and learning, and just being with that community of people was exactly what I needed that summer.
And what were you doing for work then?
I was working for Under Armour. I worked for them for 9 years. At the time that I moved to Florida, I took the position to open up a store in Daytona, and I was a new store project lead. We were going to open stores in Canada, opening new stores. I had experience in opening stores in South Carolina, working in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, helping in all stores, like on the East Coast over here, Hilton Head, Polar, St. Augustine, just really working with them, developing a team, especially when we opened this store here in Daytona. It was Under Armour was a big part of my life and got me really, everything kind of went in line, like my yoga, working with Under Armour, just all that health and fitness kind of worked together. Mm-hmm. It was a lifestyle. Absolutely. It was a lifestyle. Working there kept me really motivated. The company was really big on, challenging us to not just work for a fitness company, but actually, go out there and do what we enjoy.
Okay. So you've been teaching for about 3 years.
Yeah, almost 3 years. Yeah. So
at what point did you make the switch from being an Under Armour employee to I'm going to teach?
Oh, that was almost 2 years. About 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years ago, I loved the company. I loved the people I worked for. I loved the people I got to spend my days with. But I knew that I wasn't living my truth, in a sense that I was being complacent with just going to work, making a pretty good salary, just going to work. And I just wasn't happy. I wasn't really spending as much time as I wanted with my son. So I needed a break from that. And I took the leap. I left with my heart broken because I loved everyone I worked with, and it was a really tough decision to leave. But it was the right decision.
How did you know?
I knew because after I cried about it, I felt this sense of relief, as maybe call it anxiety, while I was there my last 6 months or so, thinking, can I do this? Can I make a living off it? Can I support myself? I mean, it's just not me, it's my son. But once I did it and I walked away, I could breathe. And it was just a big, pressure just really coming off my chest. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. This is going to be okay. I'm going to do it. And it's not going to be easy. And I'm going to have to work my butt off, but I'm going to do it.
That's a big deal.
Yes, it wasn't easy. And it's hard. People know you don't make a lot of money, teaching yoga, average yoga teachers, in a sense, most yoga teachers, we're not out traveling and doing retreats all the time. I am not one of those teachers that have done that or had the ability to do that per se. I've done some and I teach, here, but making a good living off of yoga, it's a passion, and you really have to like nail your clients, and that's where you get your money. Like once you build your own community, yeah, you can make a living off of it, but it's not easy.
Yeah. So it's
not going to make you rich.
What is your vision for it? Where do you want to take it personally?
Kind of what got me to even want to be a teacher is to really, I want people to feel what it feels like, what yoga feels like the lifestyle. So for me, it's to get as many people as possible to start practicing yoga, as many kids, because I believe if I would have started younger, and I have no regrets, I started exactly when I was supposed to, but I feel like if kids can start yoga and at an early age, then that will change a lot of the way I feel like this country and this world we're shifting, and it will just bring people to be at a calmer, place in their heads and with other people, and showing compassion, not just for other people, but for this, Mother Earth and for animals and stuff. So I want that. I want to spread that message. And if that's by teaching yoga or by posting something on Instagram or Facebook or on my website, and someone reads it and it resonates with them, then I feel like that's enough. If I can inspire one person to, be a little more mindful of how they eat, or stepping on the mat and breathing, or meditating, or just showing some compassion to animals, whatever that may be, if I can just change someone's mind to, just think about it. Think about it and see, what does that feel like? How do you feel about that? Or do you feel like being kinder is going to help you? And most people, and everyone's going to say, yeah, you're right. I can be a little kinder, or I can show a little more compassion to my friend or my family member, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe we are exploiting this world, and maybe I can be a little more mindful of not using plastic, or eating seasonally, or whatever it is to reduce our carbon footprint. Whatever I can inspire, if I can inspire someone to just be a little more thoughtful in that aspect of just this in life that we live, then I feel like I'm doing my job. I'm not looking to be famous. I'm not looking to make a lot of money. I just want people to be better.
That's why I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Just to, I've kind of targeted people who the ideal audience for me is people who want to change, who want to live more deeply and have better lives and feel better. And that's why I wanted to talk to a yogi, because for me, it's made such a difference. And I can totally relate to you about wishing I started younger. I don't really have regrets about it, but I really wish that our culture, it was more a part of our culture like it is in some other places, because, I was an athlete as a kid, and for me, it was mostly baseball. I loved baseball so much, but I was also a little intense, and really took it seriously. And I was the kid who, first of all, I had a great coach. We practiced every day. We didn't have a game, in Little League. And, so I loved that. I ate that up. But I was also the kid who at 10, 11, 12 years old was running to build my stamina. We did all that in baseball practice, but I was doing it on my own too. And I was going and practicing on my own aside from, so, you can imagine how uptight I was about it.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I would step up to the plate, it was so important to me to get a hit that I put all this pressure on myself, and nobody functions in an optimal way when they feel like that. Relaxation really is important, when it comes to doing anything well in life. And I just know, I mean, yoga, a lot of it is about like sort of this easy come, easy go vibe. Like you only push your muscles as far as they can go. You be good to yourself. A lot of it is about, let your shoulders down from your ears, take a breath. And I could have just really benefited from that as a kid. And it that was a hard lesson for me to learn. And that baseball wasn't the only part of life where I did that, but it was a good example of something I was pretty good at. But my stuff, my, uptight sort of vibe was getting in the way of me really flourishing. And, anything we do, our jobs, our relationships. I have a friend who, is from Latin America, and he shared with me this Latin American saying that's has come to be one of my favorite sayings. And it's, he who, am I going to screw this up? I'm going to have to edit it out. Okay. Whenever you stop laughing, it's he who wants no soup gets 3 bowls. Think about that. He who wants no soup gets 3 bowls. Sometimes the neediness, the wanting so badly of something is the very thing that gets in our way of it.
Yeah.
That to me is what, because when I heard that, I'm like, it hit me like, that's what I did with baseball. I wanted all the soup, but then when whenever I let go of it, anything in life, I mean, whether it's relationships or jobs or money or whatever, if we're holding on too tight to it, it doesn't work out as well. But when you let go a little bit, things tend to flow.
Yeah.
And I think especially in like relationships where if we're like really needy, or it's a turnoff to people, it is, whether it's in business, transactional stuff, romantic relationships, whatever. If we're in a frame of mind or an energetic place of need, man, it's not attractive.
No,
It
even in
pushes people away.
friendships.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It pushes people away. Where if we can just relax and accept ourselves and accept other people, things just kind of work out. And it attracts people. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent now, wasn't it? So now one of the things I want to talk about, and, following you on Instagram, I have watched you and your handstands. And you're quite the handstander, at least from my point of view. I know that you disagree with me probably because you see yourself as very much a novice. But, to me, that's just crazy watching you. But so tell me about what that's been like. Like, what does the handstand thing mean to you? Because it's something I see. I actually did a handstand workshop at one point, very early after I started practicing. So there was no way I was going to stand on my hands. But what I did learn, it was with Keno McGregor, who I love.
Yes.
And, but what I did learn is how to position my arms, like that it's in the shoulders actually is where you need the strength. And I just learned that I really need to focus on my shoulders a lot more in every pose, what I'm doing with my shoulders. Cause that's one of the things. And aside from holding my breath, hold my shoulders, like that tension. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I have noticed that, people decide they want to do handstands and it becomes like this thing, like, by God, I'm going to do a handstand and I'm going to work at it and might take forever. But I also, like, there are people I follow online who every day they're posting their handstand practice, and you're seeing how they improve over time. They're documenting it. So tell me what the handstand thing means to you, what that has been about for you.
Oh, the handstand. It's been a journey for sure. So when I first went to yoga and I saw someone do a headstand, I was like, that's my goal. I'm going to do the headstand. And I got that fairly quickly. For me, I think I got it fairly quickly. Handstand, after I learned how to do a headstand, handstand was the next thing. I'm going to do the handstand. I'm definitely going to do it. And for years, up until I'll even say maybe last year or so, I would get up for a second, 2 seconds. Oh, got it. Good.
Yeah.
And I was never confident in my handstands. And like you said, it's the consistency of, if you put your mind on, I'm going to learn how to do a handstand, you will learn how to do a handstand. That it's simple as that. Like if you're consistent with your practice and you start learning your body, it's so different when you're upside down, like your toes are above your head. Like, what am I doing? Once you start learning your alignment, what works in your body, where you're placing your hands, the weight in your hands, is it in the heels and in the fingertips, your shoulders, your neck, like where's that? Are you stacking your hips over your shoulders? It's really learning where you find that balance in your body. And once you feel that and you can hold it for a few seconds, that's when it becomes kind of addicting. You're like, okay, I did it. I got some airtime. I'm going to do this. And I'm still far from where I want to be. I held my longest handstand recently. I can get into it for about 32 seconds, 35 seconds, which is huge for me. But do I feel like I'm good at it still? Absolutely not. I still have a lot of practice. But that journey it's eye-opening, because I used to never believe like, oh, anyone can do anything. And I honestly thought I would never get a handstand because I practiced it. I did it here and there, and they sprinkle them in classes and you learn. And I've taken workshops and I've done all the things, and I should know how to do it. And I've been practicing with a handstand teacher, so an inversion teacher, and he's really helped me learn, like, this is what you need to do. He wasn't easy on me, and he gave me some really tough advice, and I don't know, the next day I was like, he's not going to tell me I'm not a handstander. Like, I'm going to do it. And sure enough, the next day, I don't know, it just all clicked. The training, just being consistent with my practice, I got up and held a handstand, and it's just kind of been going from there, and it's evolving, and each day is different. And as soon as you think that you nail the handstand, you completely, the next day, you can't even get up. So, and that's the practice. That's yoga. It's different every day.
Well, and I've found that with some other poses, that one day I'll feel like, man, I really nailed that pose that time. And the next time I'll go back and I can't. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things also about yoga. It teaches us to be patient with ourselves. Mm-hmm. It really does. Or the other option is to like hate yourself. Like, what else are you gonna do? Like,
but that's what yoga. So yoga's it's a non-attachment. So you go on your mat, you practice, and you let it go. It's like whatever.
Right.
That's what it was for today, because the next day it's going to be different. It's going to either be really awesome and feel really great, or it's going to be like, okay, it didn't happen. But as long as you don't attach to that feeling of like, oh, I didn't do it, it wasn't great, or so many other people are doing it.
That's kind of the opposite of what yoga is about, really. All of that.
Yep.
So that's what yoga is not.
Yoga is not that. It's not about the attachment. It's not about like really because we get better at what we do, but that's not the goal of yoga. Yoga is not about landing a handstand or, doing all these really fancy, beautiful poses that you see on Instagram and in magazines and all over the internet. Yoga is the practice of self, and we just get better at these poses because we're doing it and we're showing up for ourselves.
It's the process.
The process. It's the journey.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who's never been to a yoga class, who wants to try it?
I say, for me, I think it's easier. Go with a friend. If you have someone, always go with a friend, because you just feel, because it can be intimidating. You go into a studio, you don't know what you're doing. The lights are kind of dim. Depending on what studio you go to, they're either speaking Sanskrit or English, and even in English, you don't know what's child pose. So go with a friend.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourself, because we're all beginners. I teach beginners. I teach advanced students, and if I can just go back and just tell every beginner that comes to my class, I'm always like, just do what you can do. I'm here to guide you through the class. So don't feel like if you go to your first yoga class that you have to do everything that the teacher is telling you to do. You don't have to do that. You do what feels good in your body. Yeah. And to this day, 8 years later, I'm like, they're on the left side, I'm on the right side. Like, I still mess up. So don't take it too serious. It's just yoga. It's just a practice of the asana when you're in a sense, when you're in the studio, when you first start, you're just practicing.
Yeah. And there's something about it for me, that the idea of everybody else is doing this pose, but I need to take a break, and I'm going to just go into child's pose for
ego.
Long as I need to.
Yeah, it's ego when we feel like we can't.
Right.
And that we should push.
Well, and on the other hand, if it's like we're taking, well, for me, it's like to do that when I need to, because my MO would be to just keep pushing myself. But it's okay to just stop and breathe and catch up for a couple minutes and then go back, because like you said, that's just today.
Yeah.
And then the next practice is it's gonna keep getting easier, and it's frustrating because I could be in a really, really good routine where I'm practicing 4 or 5 days a week, and I'm feeling really good about, what I'm doing with the poses. And then one day, I just have to stop. And I just have to go into child's pose in the middle of a class or something when I can't, and it's easy to it could be easy to let your ego get in the way of that and beat yourself up. But again, that's what yoga is not.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had times just recently, I went and took an hour nap in the yoga class, a hot hour nap. I wasn't feeling good, and I thought I could go and just push my body and get through it. And that was not the case. And I just took I showed up. I was at the studio, but I slept because that's what I needed.
It's funny, and everybody, we all have the right to do our own thing too. It's funny because there's one class, I haven't been to it for a while, but there's a woman who shows up there, and evidently she likes the heat, and she does the poses that she can do. And, but there's this sense that she's just giving her body love. She's just doing what feels good. And she doesn't give a shit about what anybody else is doing. She's not keeping up with the sequence of and you know what? The instructors are like, whatever, that's her. That's why she's here. That's what she's doing. And that's what feels right to her. So be it.
And that's great that the studio acknowledges that, and that it's okay that, because you want to be inviting for anyone. If someone wants to go and just practice their own thing, let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Let them do what they want to do and what feels good to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting to me, just the subtle differences in teachers too, and the different things you pick up from different teachers. It's just every one, there's a little bit different vibe,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's another thing for people that like want to do yoga or start yoga. And for me, so when someone's like, oh, I don't like yoga, I'm like, have you tried it? And they're like, yes. I'm like, well, what was it that you didn't like? And after talking to them, it's either, oh, it's boring, it's too slow. A lot of times it's like, I didn't feel comfortable with the teacher or the studio. And it's like, don't stop there. Like, don't stop because you had a bad experience with a teacher or a studio. Like, there's in most, it's so big now, and yoga studios are popping up everywhere. It seems like there's so many options nowadays, even online, to just pick someone that resonates with you and practice under them. And if it's just one person at a studio, just go to their classes. But I feel like that has a lot to do with why people are turned off with yoga too. If they don't find a teacher that they really resonate with, or like the style of yoga that they feels good too. Because you got to find a style that works for you too. I love heated yoga. I love hot yoga.
Yeah.
That's something that I go, I sweat, I'm detoxifying. I feel good. Like I'm moving, I'm sweating. It feels good to me. Not everyone likes hot yoga.
Yeah.
There's so many different styles. You find what works for you. Ashtanga is another love of mine that I just feel so good knowing where I'm going to go next. It's,
I like that too. I do.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's comforting. And as people, we like our routine. We like to know what's going to happen next. And that's why I enjoy it. But then the ADD in me, like the vinyasa, I love when the teacher's just going to I don't know what sequence is happening or what's going to come next. And I enjoy that as well too. And that works for me.
Yeah. It's just, it's a whole like world that if you've never been involved at all, you just don't know that it exists.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like the way it's portrayed in the media is kind of cartoonish. Like, I don't know. I think about the romantic comedies or whatever, where there's a yoga class going on and there's the creepy male yoga instructor who's like, help assisting the women in their poses or what, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's like a joke a lot of times in the movie.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because right now there's so much going on in the yoga community with gurus and male yoga instructors that have pushed that and have abused women in that way. And so to see it really like like you said, in a romantic comedy and I think I know what movie you're talking about, where they're just kind of like all like touchy feely and stuff like that. Like they're like being funny about it. But in reality, this is something dark that is happening in yoga that's happened and it's being exposed now. I think there's like a Netflix series
the
or
Bikram,
doc on it.
Bikram documentary.
Yeah, with Bikram. And then, there's some other teachers that I don't really want to even say their names. There's podcasts and movies and articles, and it's sad because that can ruin, and not just it has ruined yoga for so many people as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever even been in a class with a male instructor.
Yeah, you don't see it as much as women because it is predominantly female. I've been lucky to have great experiences with every male teacher that I've practiced with. And I'm thankful for that, because to be exposed to what is now like come to light is traumatizing. And, we come to yoga because it's supposed to be that safe place for us.
It's supposed to be healing.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, anything, if you're a young woman who's, tired of the 9 to 5 and you're trying to figure out what do you say to that person who you have any advice for someone who hasn't gone through the transition that you went through?
I really think about it. We live in this day and age where people make it seem like it's just so easy to quit your job and like go pursue your dreams. And it's not. Like, people glamorize it and make you feel bad for keeping that 9 to 5. And that's okay for some people. That works for people. It worked for me for, 9 years. Exactly not 9 to 5. I did at the end, have more of a 9 to 5, but, having a job, working for corporate, getting paid salary, those things work for a lot of Americans. And, that's what we do. But if you are struggling with that, you just really have to think about what you're passionate about. Think about how you're going to make it an income. And are you really driven enough to do that? Follow your dreams, because if it's kind of nagging at you and you're feeling it, then maybe there is something there you can pursue.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've talked to somebody about this a couple times recently where, you're right. Like, not everybody's at a place in life where whatever it is they love doing the most in life, that they want to quit their 9 to 5 job with all the benefits and go teach yoga. You know what I mean? Not every, and like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would like just not have a job and try to do a podcast, there's like no way I would have. But we go through seasons in life. And I think in that way, it's like yoga. It's okay. Like, if that's where you're at right now, where what you need is to have that structure and that security or whatever, and there's something you really want to do, but you're not at a place where you're ready to do that yet. Whatever, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
And one of the craziest things in our society that I think is this, as a young man, I remember being a senior in high school, and my family being, okay, so like, what are you going to do? Well, I'm 18 years old. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. How am I supposed to know what I'm going to do? And we put all this pressure on young people to like have that answer of what they're going to do. And the truth is, it changes. Even if I know now what I want to do with my time, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing in 5 years or 10 years. I mean, so maybe right now the corporate job is what I need, but who knows how you'll feel 10 years from now and what you'll want to be doing with your time.
Absolutely.
Things just change. And for me, what I want, my definition of success at this point in my life, and it's become what I've been pursuing over the last 6 or 8 years. For a long time, it nagged at me like, I'm not doing with my time what I want to be doing with my time. I want my time to be mine and to be able to do the things that I want to do, not be like latched on to this company or whatever where somebody else is setting the agenda for my life. I don't want that. And so I've gradually worked towards, there's a Bob Dylan quote, a man is a success when he wakes up in the morning and he goes to bed at night, and in between he does what he wants to do.
Yes.
That's what I want.
And it's not that you're not doing work, because once you get into this lifestyle of kind of working for yourself, it's not that like you have all this free time. You're working, you're grinding a lot harder because it's for you. You have bills to make, to pay, and you're living this life like, okay, how am I going to make the next dollar, and how am I going to do this without compromising everything that I was looking for? Like, I want to do it on my own terms. And that sometimes that means I'm going to work really long days and do, other jobs, because yoga, of course, is not my only source of income right now. I would love for it to be my only source of income, but I do work and do other I use my skills of what I'm good at, and I do that to make money. So, I'm an organizer. I also organize closets as well. And that's another source of income that keeps me able to do this, to teach yoga, to do what I enjoy. So, and you have to work hard. And there's something to be said to be able to, like you said, make your own, like if you're living your life and doing it on your own terms. And for me and for you and anyone else that is doing this, we're doing it our own terms. It's not easy. That security of having that check is not there. Like we really have to grind for it and make our money.
Yeah. Well,
and it teaches you to be better at what you do.
Well, I think it makes you, when you're having to grind and do whatever it is that you need to do, then it also makes you appreciate your yoga or whatever it is for whoever you are. It makes you appreciate it more, what you really, really do enjoy.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Path to Authenticity. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, you can find links in the show notes or visit our website at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, if you have a suggestion for a topic, or you know someone who would make a great guest, email the show at thepathtooauthenticity@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you know someone else who would enjoy the show, or even just a particular episode, please share it with them. Every little bit helps. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider becoming one wherever it is you choose to listen. You can find the show on Patreon, where by becoming a patron, you can hear episodes before they're released publicly. You can gain access to supplemental content. There are other benefits in the various tiers. Visit patreon.com/thepathtooauthenticity. Join our Facebook community or follow the show on Instagram, both at The Path to Authenticity. We also have a YouTube channel. You can connect with us on Twitter or Pinterest. To hear the songs from this and every episode, you can find the Path to Authenticity playlist on Spotify. Obviously, there are a lot of ways you could be spending your time, so I appreciate you spending some of it here with me. I'm Tom Gentry. Thanks for listening. Be nice.
You did great, honeybee.
The Path to Authenticity is powered by Equivox. For digital marketing and web design services, visit equivox.com.